People think human behavior is complicated because they only look at what people say. But the truth is much simpler and much more uncomfortable. Humans respond to energy, intention, certainty, and emotion long before they process the meaning of your words. Someone can tell you they're fine while their shoulders curl in and their eyes hold the weight of a storm. Someone can say they agree, yet their jaw tightens for half a second. Someone can laugh, but the sound feels hollow because the room is full of tension their voice can't hide. This is the real language of human behavior, the real communication channel that most people never learn to read. And here is the harsh truth about influence. If people cannot feel your clarity, they will not follow your direction. If they cannot sense your confidence, they will not trust your message. If they cannot feel your emotional steadiness, they will not stay grounded in your presence. Influence is not about being charming. Influence is emotional physics. Influence is psychology in motion. Influence is the quiet mastery of understanding why people do what they do, even when they cannot explain it themselves. Most people try to convince with facts. Influential people move with presence. Most people talk to be heard. Influential people speak to shape perception. Most people react to others. Influential people read the room, feel the tension, sense the shift, and lead with intention. Influence is not loud. Influence is precise. Influence is timing. Influence is the ability to enter a moment, recognize its emotional architecture, and guide it with clarity instead of force. You're about to learn the game behind the game, the patterns beneath human behavior, the triggers beneath emotions, the silent signals beneath every interaction. For the next 90 minutes, you won't learn tricks. You won't learn manipulation. You won't learn shortcuts. You will learn the real psychology that governs humans. How we perceive each other, how we project our inner states, how we react before we think, how we reveal the truth without meaning to, and how influence is earned not through volume, but through understanding. You will understand why silence is more powerful than argument, why clarity cuts deeper than complexity, why a steady voice commands more respect than a loud one, and why a calm presence dissolves resistance faster than persuasion. These are not abstract concepts. They are the foundations of every social interaction in your life. Leadership, family, conflict, trust, attraction, negotiation, respect. Human behavior is the operating system beneath all of it. By the end of this journey, you will know how to read micro-expressions that last less than a blink, how to notice the emotional trigger beneath a reaction, how to understand status signals without needing them explained, and how to use clarity, framing, pace, tone, and silence to guide conversations without forcing them. You will learn why people shut down, why they open up, why they resist, why they follow, why they hide parts of themselves, and why they reveal everything to those who know how to listen between the lines. This audiobook will give you the ability to step into any room and instantly understand more than others here. It will give you the advantage of seeing the emotional truth behind the social performance. It will help you stay centered when tension rises, stay observant when emotions shift, and stay grounded when others lose control. Influence does not belong to those who push. Influence belongs to those who understand. Over the next 10 chapters, we will break down the psychology of human behavior into clear, actionable components. You will learn to read energy before words, decode subtle expressions, understand social dynamics, use persuasion with precision, frame conversations with intention, hold a powerful position without aggression, use silence as a strategic tool, communicate with clarity, and ultimately guide how others feel and respond in your presence. Each chapter gives you not just knowledge, but a way to practice, a way to integrate these skills into your everyday life until they become second nature. Chapter 1. Read energy before words. There is a moment in every interaction when the truth appears before the words do. It shows up quietly, like a shift in the air, like something your body notices before your mind catches up. Most people ignore that moment. And that is why they misunderstand people over and over again. You have felt it. You have walked into a room and instantly sensed tension. You have listened to someone say, "I'm fine," while every part of you knew they weren't. You have talked to someone who sounded confident but carried a subtle tremor in their energy. That subtle tremor is the real message. Most people listen with their ears. Influential people listen with their nervous system. When you rely only on words, you are always one step behind the truth. Words are delayed. Words are edited. Words are filtered through fear, ego, insecurity, and habit. But energy is immediate. Energy is involuntary. Energy is the unfiltered broadcast of a person's emotional reality. And understanding that changes everything. The real pain is this. Most conflicts, misunderstandings, arguments, and broken relationships don't come from what was said. They come from what was felt but never acknowledged. People rarely tell you the real story, not because they want to lie, but because they often don't have the language for what they're experiencing. They express the truth through their breath, their posture, their gaze, their tone, their tension. And if you don't know how to read those signals, you will always chase the conversation instead of leading it. There is a simple principle at the heart of human behavior. Humans communicate with energy first, words second. A calm person can say something firm and it feels reassuring. A tense person can say something polite and it feels threatening. A nervous person can say something agreeable and it feels dishonest. A confident person can say something simple and it feels powerful. This is why influence begins before you ever open your mouth. To understand people deeply, you must learn to read what they reveal, not what they announce. Someone may say, "I'm listening," but their eyes keep drifting away. Someone may say, "I'm not upset," but their shoulders stay lifted and their breath stays shallow. Someone may pretend to be relaxed, but their jaw keeps tightening every few seconds. The body speaks before the voice does. The state arrives before the sentence. Think of someone you know who drains you the moment they walk into the room. They don't need to say anything negative. Their energy collapses the space. Now think of someone whose presence lifts you, grounds you, makes you feel safe. Again, they don't need to say a word. That is the power of the emotional field each person carries. And once you learn to read that field, you stop taking words at face value. You stop assuming, you start seeing. Picture this. Someone says, "Sure, let's talk." But they lean back slightly, arms pulled in, shoulders raised just a bit. Their lips pressed together for a fraction of a second. Their eyes blink faster than usual. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but everything is telling you they feel unsafe. If you ignore that signal and charge into the conversation, you lose influence. But if you acknowledge the truth beneath the surface, it feels like something's weighing on you. Want to start there? Their entire system relaxes. You didn't analyze them. You understood them. This is where practice matters. Reading energy is not guessing. It's noticing. Start with the breath. The breath is the emotional dashboard of the human body. Fast breath means agitation. Shallow breath means fear or pressure. Slow breath means safety. Controlled breath means confidence. The breath tells you more about a person's internal state than their vocabulary ever could. Next, watch the shoulders. Shoulders reveal tension instantly. When someone is defensive, their shoulders lift even if their face stays calm. When someone feels overwhelmed, their chest collapses slightly. When someone feels certain, their posture expands. Shoulders reveal truth before the tongue does. Then observe the eyes. Eyes show direction, focus, comfort, discomfort, confidence, insecurity, sincerity, or withdrawal. Quick, darting eyes reveal anxiety. Long, steady eye contact reveals clarity. Avoiding eye contact during emotional statements may reveal fear of vulnerability more than deception. The eyes don't just look, they speak. And finally, Notice the space. People move closer when they feel safe. They pull away when they feel exposed. They freeze when they feel judged. They collapse inward when they're ashamed. They expand when they trust you. Space is emotional honesty made visible. Learning to read energy is not about catching someone. It's about meeting them. When you understand the emotional truth in the room, you don't have to force the conversation. You simply follow what is already being revealed. And when someone feels seen on the level of energy, not just words, they relax. They open. They trust. Influence becomes easier because there is no resistance left to fight. Every powerful communicator shares the same habit. They pause before reacting. That pause gives them clarity. That pause resets the emotional temperature. That pause lets them read what others miss. In that pause, they notice the breath, the tension, the tone, the micro shifts that expose someone's real internal world. They respond to the state, not the script. And that is the difference between people who argue and people who influence. Before you take anything personally, read the energy. Before you react to a comment, read the energy. Before you assume someone's intention, read the energy. Before you try to influence a moment, read the energy. Chapter 2. Decode micro-expressions. There is a kind of truth that slips out before the mind can hide it. It flashes across the face in less than a second. It comes and goes so quickly that most people never see it. But once you learn how to recognize it, you will never unsee it again. That truth is the micro-expression. A micro-expression is the emotional leak a person cannot control. It's the moment their real feeling escapes before their brain can apply the mask. And here's the part people never realize. The face is loyal to emotion, not to intention. A person may try to look calm, but if they feel threatened, fear flickers across their eyebrows. A person may try to look confident, but insecurity tightens their lips. A person may try to appear relaxed, but just for an instant, tension burns in their jaw. The micro-expression is the spark of authenticity inside the performance of communication. Most misunderstandings happen because people listen to the story coming out of someone's mouth instead of the truth coming out of their face. You trust the smile, but miss the resentment behind it. You take the apology as sincere, but miss the contempt that flashed a moment earlier. You think someone agrees with you, but their eyes tighten with resistance for just a fraction of a second. And then you wonder why later the relationship shifts, why they withdraw, why they act differently, why they say one thing but behave in another direction. Nothing changed. You simply didn't catch the truth when it first appeared. If you want to understand human behavior on a deeper level, you must learn this principle. The face reveals what the words attempt to manage. People can choose their tone, they can choose their sentences, they can choose what to hide, but they cannot choose how their nervous system reacts. And micro-expressions are the nervous system speaking out loud. Imagine someone says, "I'm not upset," but as soon as the topic comes up, their eyebrows pull inward for an instant. They don't notice it. You barely catch it, but that half second of tension tells you exactly what their body is experiencing. Or imagine someone says, "I agree," but their lips press tightly together before they answer. The lips always tighten before the mind admits resistance. Or imagine someone says, "I trust you," but their eyes dart sideways for a split moment. Eyes move fast when the mind is searching for safety. These signals are not dramatic, they are subtle. And subtlety is what makes them honest. Picture sitting across from someone who's trying to stay composed. Their posture is neutral, their voice is steady. But when you mention a certain name or situation, you see it. Just a tiny flare of disgust in the nose, a micro wrinkle that lasts barely a heartbeat. They didn't say a word, but their truth just slipped out. Or think of a person trying to hide fear. They keep smiling, they keep acting cheerful. But their eyebrows lift just a little too quickly, and their eyes widen in a way that doesn't match their tone. The eyes always warn before the words retreat. When you learn to decode these signals, confusion evaporates. You no longer rely on assumptions. You see the moment someone gets uncomfortable. You see the moment they lose trust. You see the moment they shift from being open to being guarded. And once you see it, you can respond with precision instead of reacting blindly. To develop this skill, begin by slowing down your observation. Micro-expressions happen fast, but they are easier to catch when you stop rushing through interactions. Study the eyes. When someone feels insecure, their blinking pattern changes. When someone feels uncertain, their eyes pull sideways for a split moment. When someone feels challenged, their eyes hold too long before looking away. The eyes are the first place the emotional truth escapes. Then study the mouth. The lips are incredibly honest. When someone is holding back irritation, their lips compress. When someone is hiding disagreement, one corner of their mouth pulls back slightly. When someone feels embarrassed or exposed, their lips pull inward as if trying to hide. The mouth tries to manage emotion, but it always reveals tension before it reveals control. Next, study the jaw. When someone feels threatened, the jaw tightens even if their expression stays polite. When someone feels defensive, the jaw locks. When someone feels overwhelmed but doesn't want to show it, the jaw shifts sideways slightly. Jaw tension is the body's way of bracing for emotional impact. Finally, study the eyebrows. The eyebrows reveal confusion, doubt, anger, curiosity, and fear faster than any other part of the face. A quick upward flick signals uncertainty. A fast inward pull signals frustration or distress. A rapid downward movement signals irritation or dominance. Eyebrows tell the emotional story before the voice has time to censor it. But here is the deeper truth. Decoding micro-expressions is not about catching someone. It is about understanding them. When you see micro-signals of fear, you can soften your tone. When you see signals of resistance, you can slow down and clarify. When you see signals of overwhelm, you can give space. When you see signals of discomfort, you can shift your approach. Influence becomes easier not because you're reading their mind, but because you're reading their emotions with accuracy and empathy. This is where awareness becomes power. When someone is trying to hide their feelings but their micro-expression betrays them, you become the person who understands what they're afraid to say. That makes you the person they trust. That makes you the person they open up to. That makes you the person who reads truth instead of performance. Every powerful communicator shares one habit. They notice the emotion before they respond to the words. They don't rush. They don't react. They don't jump into assumptions. They observe. They breathe. They let the micro-expression speak. And then they lead the conversation from emotional truth rather than verbal illusion. Before you reply to someone, ask yourself quietly, what did their face just reveal that their words tried to cover? What emotion just flashed across their eyes? What tension did their mouth try to hide? What truth did their body announce without permission? Chapter 3. Emotional triggers run the world. There is a moment in every decision when logic steps aside and emotion takes control. Most people don't realize how fast it happens. They think they're choosing with reason, weighing options, making smart choices. But the truth is far more primal and far more human. Emotions fire first, and logic comes later to justify whatever the heart already decided. This is the part of human behavior most people misunderstand. And it is the part influencers understand better than anyone else. Every action someone takes, every conflict, every hesitation, every argument, every risk, every retreat is driven by an emotional trigger underneath the surface. You don't see the trigger, you only see the behavior. But if you don't understand the trigger, you misinterpret the behavior and you lose the ability to influence the outcome. The real pain is simple. People think they are responding to situations. They're actually responding to feelings inside the situation. People don't avoid conversations because the topic is difficult. They avoid them because the emotion feels dangerous. People don't get angry because of the words you used. They get angry because of the meaning those words hit inside them. People don't withdraw because they don't care. They withdraw because something threatened their sense of safety, belonging, or identity. Emotion is not the reaction. Emotion is the driver. Once you see this, the entire world of human behavior starts to make sense. There is one principle you must hold tightly. People decide emotionally first and justify logically second. This is why someone buys something they don't need. This is why someone stays in a relationship that hurts them. This is why someone refuses an opportunity they're fully capable of succeeding in. This is why someone argues aggressively about something that doesn't truly matter. Logic explains the story. Emotion chooses the chapter. Picture a person standing in front of an opportunity. Everything about it is good. The timing is right. The benefits are obvious. The chance is rare. But instead of moving forward, they freeze. They hesitate. They talk themselves out of it. They create reasons. They list concerns. They label themselves not ready. It looks like logic. It sounds like logic, but the truth is that fear triggered first, and logic simply arrived to protect the fear. Or imagine someone who reacts with anger during a harmless conversation. The words weren't offensive. The tone wasn't harsh. Nothing objectively wrong happened. But something inside them was touched, a memory, a wound, a belief. And the reaction wasn't to you. It was to the trigger the moment awakened. When you learn to identify the trigger underneath the reaction, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting to emotion with more emotion. You stop arguing with the surface and start addressing the root. Influence deepens because you're speaking to the truth instead of the defense mechanism. The emotional system runs on a handful of core triggers. You don't need to memorize 100 psychological terms. You only need to understand a few emotional currents that drive human behavior. Fear is the first one. Fear shapes more decisions than most people will ever admit. It shows up as hesitation, avoidance, overthinking, defensiveness, perfectionism, or even anger. The person isn't difficult. They're scared. Desire is another. People move toward what makes them feel alive, valued, or fulfilled. Even when the decision makes no logical sense, desire pulls harder than reason pushes. Belonging is powerful. Humans are wired to avoid rejection at every cost. When a trigger threatens someone's social identity, friendships, relationships, reputation, they react instantly because the emotional risk feels too high. Validation drives behavior deeply. People need to feel seen, respected, understood, and valued. When something threatens that internal need, the emotional reaction becomes intense because the person feels invisible or dismissed. And loss aversion shapes nearly every protective behavior. Humans fear losing something more than they desire gaining something. The trigger of potential loss can influence choices far more than potential reward. When you can recognize which emotional trigger is activated in a moment, you gain a level of clarity most people never experience. You see why someone is resistant. You see why they're withdrawing. You see why they're arguing. You see why they're overwhelmed. You don't waste energy trying to fight the behavior. You speak to the emotion the behavior is protecting. Imagine someone resisting your idea. You could argue with them, defend your point, push harder. Or you could notice the fear behind the resistance. Is it fear of change? Fear of judgment? Fear of losing control? Fear of not being enough? When you speak to the fear instead of the argument, the resistance dissolves. Or picture someone who shuts down emotionally mid-conversation. Instead of trying to force them to open up, you recognize the trigger of vulnerability. You slow your voice, you soften your presence, you remove pressure, you create safety, and the moment they feel safe again, they come back. This is how emotional intelligence becomes influence. When someone reacts strongly, pause before reacting back. Ask yourself quietly, what emotion is driving this moment? What is their nervous system trying to protect? What fear, desire, or need just got activated? What emotional truth is more important than the words being spoken? These questions shift you from reacting to leading, and the deeper truth is this: emotional triggers are not weaknesses, they are signals. They tell you where someone hurts. They tell you where someone hopes. They tell you where someone is fragile. They tell you where someone needs connection instead of correction. Influence is not about navigating people's logic. Influence is about navigating their emotional reality. When you understand the trigger, you understand the person. When you speak to the emotion, you speak to the truth. And when you speak to the truth, people listen. Emotion moves behavior long before logic organizes it. Emotion chooses the direction long before thoughts catch up. Emotion runs the world far more quietly than most people realize. Chapter 4. Social Dynamics and the Invisible Rules of Status. Every room has rules that no one speaks out loud. Every conversation has a hierarchy no one names. Every group has an unspoken structure shaping who leads, who follows, who gets heard, and who gets ignored. Most people never learn to see it, and that is why they lose influence without even realizing it. Social dynamics are the invisible architecture of human behavior. You cannot touch them, but you can feel them. You cannot measure them, but you can sense when they shift. They determine who sets the tone, who shapes the conversation, who holds authority, and who fades into the background. People think influence is about talking well, sounding smart, or giving the best ideas. But in reality, influence begins long before you speak. Influence begins with status. Calm, silent, invisible status. Here is the real pain. You can say all the right words, but if your status in the room is low, people won't hear them the same way. You can have the best idea, but if your presence signals insecurity, people won't feel confident in it. You can be technically right, but emotionally overshadowed, and the room will follow someone else. Humans follow status because status signals safety. Status signals certainty. Status signals direction. And status has nothing to do with ego or dominance. True status is quiet. True status is earned. True status is the emotional position you hold in the space. There is one principle that guides every room you will ever walk into. People respond more to your presence than to your words. Picture a meeting room. Multiple people are talking. Some speak loudly. Some talk a lot. Some over-explain. But the person the room is actually responding to, the one who sets the pace, isn't the loudest. It's the one who seems most grounded, the one who listens longer before speaking, the one who doesn't rush, the one whose energy doesn't spike when challenged. That person becomes the gravity of the room, not because they demanded it, but because their presence earned it. This is the essence of social dynamics. The person with the calmest nervous system controls the room. You've seen it before. Someone tense walks into a space and everyone else tenses with them. Someone confident enters silently and everyone becomes more composed. Someone grounded joins the conversation and suddenly the room feels more stable. People think influence happens through talking, but emotional leadership is nonverbal. It begins with the signals you broadcast before you say a word. Imagine someone who leans forward too much, talks too fast, fills every silence, seeks reassurance with their eyes, and explains their point in circles. They think they're being thorough, but the room reads insecurity. Now imagine someone who sits back comfortably, shoulders relaxed, breathing slow, gaze steady, speaking fewer words with more intention. That person radiates status. The room reads certainty. People don't follow the person who says the most. People follow the person who feels the most centered. Social dynamics operate on subtle emotional cues. When you enter a room with calm energy, people automatically make space for you. When you speak slowly with precision, people listen more intently. When you don't rush to fill silence, people perceive you as confident. When you hold your posture with ease, people feel your authority without needing it explained. The deeper truth is this: you don't gain status by trying to seem powerful. You gain status by removing behaviors that signal insecurity. When you stop over-explaining, people assume you know what you're talking about. When you stop fidgeting, people assume you're in control. When you stop speaking to earn approval, people assume you already have it. When you stop reacting emotionally to challenges, people assume you're stronger than the moment. And here's the part most people miss. Status is not about dominance. It's about stability. People follow stability the way a compass follows north. To strengthen your presence in any social environment, begin with pace. Talk slower than your anxiety wants you to. Breathe deeper than the moment demands. Listen longer than you're used to. Stillness is power. People feel it before they understand it. Then notice your posture. Not rigid, not stiff, not forced, just aligned, open, grounded. A relaxed posture signals emotional safety. An aligned spine signals resilience. Shoulders that fall back instead of forward signal confidence. When your posture is calm, your presence becomes magnetic. Watch your gaze, not aggressive, not avoiding, steady, attentive, measured. A stable gaze communicates that you are here, fully present, unthreatened by the moment. People trust eyes that don't run away from the conversation. And most importantly, control the rhythm of your voice. Speak in clean, complete thoughts. Avoid spiraling sentences. Avoid speed that reveals anxiety. A calm rhythm communicates higher status without requiring any performance. Before every conversation, ask yourself quietly, what energy am I bringing into this room? What emotional signal is my presence sending? Am I leading with stability or reacting with insecurity? Am I setting the tone or letting the room set it for me? These questions shift your awareness from words to influence. Because the person with the strongest presence shapes the dynamic long before the dialogue begins. When you understand social dynamics, you stop chasing attention. You attract it. You stop trying to dominate. You guide. You stop fighting for influence. You become influential. Status is not loud. Status is not forceful. Status is not ego. Status is quiet confidence expressed through emotional stability. When you walk into any space, remember this. People are not responding to what you say. They're responding to what you embody. And when you embody calm authority, you don't have to claim the room. The room claims you. Chapter 5. The science of persuasion. Persuasion is not about pushing harder. Persuasion is not about talking longer. Persuasion is not about stacking facts until someone finally agrees. Real persuasion is subtle, psychological, emotional, and rooted in how the human brain responds to clarity, certainty, and confidence. Most people try to persuade by overwhelming, explaining, defending, convincing. But the more you push, the more resistance you create. The more you talk, the more the other person shuts down. The more you argue, the more they argue back. Here is the real pain. People don't resist your idea. They resist the way your idea feels. If your energy feels chaotic, they pull away. If your tone feels pressured, they get defensive. If your explanation feels long and scattered, they stop trusting you. If your presence feels insecure, they tune out. Persuasion is not a battle of ideas. It is a transfer of emotional certainty. When someone feels your clarity, they trust you. When someone feels your steadiness, they relax. When someone feels your conviction, they consider your perspective. When someone feels your confidence, they borrow it. This is the central principle of persuasion. People follow the message that feels the most grounded, not the one that sounds the most impressive. Think about the people who have most influenced you. They weren't always the smartest or the loudest. They weren't the ones who talked endlessly. They were the ones who made things feel simple, the ones who didn't rush, the ones who paused after the important parts, the ones who spoke with direction instead of desperation, the ones whose words had weight, not volume. Persuasion is the art of saying less, but landing more. Imagine two people giving advice. One speaks quickly, explains every detail, tries to cover every angle, hopes to sound convincing. The other speaks slowly, chooses a few strong points, expresses them with confidence, and stops talking. Who do you trust more? The one who isn't trying to prove anything, because trying too hard communicates uncertainty. And uncertainty weakens persuasion. Picture a conversation where you say something important, and instead of letting it land, you immediately add more words, more justification, more explanations. You think you're strengthening your point. But what you're actually signaling is insecurity. Like you don't believe your own message is strong enough to stand on its own. The other person feels that insecurity and mirrors it back. Now, imagine the opposite. You say your point clearly. You support it briefly, and then you stop talking. You let silence do the work. You give the other person space to think. You give your message room to settle. That pause communicates confidence. It communicates certainty. It communicates authority. Silence is one of the most powerful persuasive tools because silence tells people you believe in what you just said. Persuasion is not about convincing. It is about aligning. It is about creating a moment where the other person feels internally guided to your conclusion instead of externally pushed toward it. When you strip persuasion down to its psychological core, it becomes beautifully simple. Humans respond to clarity. They respond to structure. They respond to messages that feel easy to understand and emotionally safe to agree with. This is why the most effective persuasive framework is also the simplest. One idea, 3 pieces of support, 1 clear direction. One idea creates focus, 3 supports create confidence, 1 direction creates closure. This structure works because the brain loves patterns and hates chaos. When you give someone a single point supported by 3 clean arguments, their mind relaxes. It feels digestible. It feels organized. It feels trustworthy. And trust is the gateway to persuasion. Imagine presenting something important to someone, a decision, a viewpoint, a request. Instead of drowning them in information, you focus the conversation. Here's the main idea I want you to understand. Then you give 3 short, strong reasons. No fluff, no rambling, no overloading. And then you end with a sentence that guides them toward the response you want. And that's why this is the right direction. Simple, clean, strong, trustworthy. This works because persuasion is not intellectual. It is neurological. The brain feels safe when information is clear. The brain feels overwhelmed when information is messy. The brain trusts what feels organized, and the brain doubts what feels chaotic. Persuasion is less about the content and more about the experience of hearing it. Let's imagine another scenario. Someone challenges your point. Most people respond by accelerating, talking faster, raising their volume, adding more details, pushing harder. This destroys persuasion instantly because the nervous system reads that acceleration as threat, pressure, and desperation. The influential person does the opposite. They slow down, they breathe, they lower their tone slightly. They remove unnecessary details. They say what needs to be said and no more. Slowness signals confidence, and confidence dissolves resistance. In persuasion, the one who stays calm wins. To persuade effectively, you must shift from proving your point to enhancing the internal clarity of the person you are influencing. People don't change their mind because you won an argument. People change their mind because they suddenly feel clear. Before you try to persuade someone, ask yourself, how can I make this easier to understand? How can I remove pressure from the moment? How can I create clarity instead of noise? How can I make my message feel grounded, confident, and certain? These questions move you away from defensiveness and toward influence. Because persuasion is emotional guidance, not intellectual combat. Remember this: people aren't convinced when you overwhelm them. They're convinced when you center them. They're convinced when you simplify the path. They're convinced when they feel you believe what you're saying. They're convinced when your presence makes the moment feel safe. Persuasion is a transfer of certainty, a transfer of calm, a transfer of clarity. And the person who communicates with the greatest clarity communicates with the greatest influence. Chapter 6. The Art of Psychological Framing. Every interaction you have is shaped by one invisible force: the frame. The frame is the lens through which people interpret what you say, how you say it, and what it means. Most people think they're having a conversation about facts. In reality, they're having a conversation about frames, and whoever sets the frame shapes the meaning. Whoever shapes the meaning shapes the outcome. Here is the truth most people never learn. People don't respond to your words. They respond to the frame your words live inside. A positive message inside the wrong frame feels negative. A clear message inside a chaotic frame feels confusing. A respectful message inside a defensive frame feels threatening. A strong message inside an insecure frame feels weak. And you can say the exact same sentence in two different frames and create two completely different realities. This is the real pain. Most people lose influence not because their message is wrong, but because their frame is wrong. They start conversations with tension instead of clarity. They respond from emotion instead of intention. They explain from insecurity instead of authority. They shift into the other person's frame without realizing it. And once you lose the frame, you lose control of the meaning. Psychological framing is the skill of shaping perception before perception shapes you. It is the art of deciding how a moment should be understood. It is influence before influence even begins. There is a single principle that governs framing. The person who defines the meaning of the moment controls the moment. Picture this. Someone says, "We need to talk," but their tone is sharp and heavy. Instantly, the frame becomes conflict. You brace, you defend, you prepare for impact. Now imagine the same words spoken with calm certainty. "Hey, let's talk. I want us to get on the same page." The frame becomes collaboration, the tension disappears. Same message, different frame. Completely different emotional reality. Or imagine someone criticizes you aggressively. If you respond from defensiveness, you accept their frame of conflict. If you respond calmly with clarity, "I hear your frustration. Let's look at what's actually happening." You shift the frame from attack to problem solving. Suddenly, you're leading the moment instead of reacting to it. This is why influential people talk differently. They speak with direction, not reaction. They choose frames that guide the emotional tone of the conversation. They speak in ways that create calm, clarity, stability, and shared understanding instead of chaos, confusion, and emotional spikes. To master framing, begin by observing the emotional container of the moment. The frame is always there, whether intentional or not. When someone speaks with fear, the frame becomes danger. When someone speaks with anger, the frame becomes conflict. When someone speaks with clarity, the frame becomes direction. When someone speaks with softness, the frame becomes safety. Before you say anything, step inside the emotional temperature of the moment. Great communicators never step into a frame they didn't choose. They pause, breathe, and create their own. If you want the frame to feel collaborative, begin with shared intention. Let's figure this out together. If you want the frame to feel grounded, begin with calm clarity. Here's what I want us to understand. If you want the frame to feel safe, begin with reassurance. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk openly. If you want the frame to feel structured, begin with direction. Here's what's going on, and here's where we're heading. Before the conversation unfolds, the frame tells everyone how to feel inside it, and once the emotion is guided, the words become easy. Imagine you're giving difficult feedback. If you jump straight into the issue, the frame becomes threat. The other person reacts with defensiveness. But if you set the frame first, I want you to succeed, and this one thing will make you even better, the feedback becomes a path, not an attack. Same message, different emotional reality. Or imagine you need something from someone, but you open with apology, over-explaining, or nervous energy. Now the frame becomes burden. The other person feels pressured. But if you begin with clarity, here's what I need and why it matters, the frame becomes purpose. Purpose is far easier to agree with than pressure. Framing is not manipulation. Framing is emotional architecture. It is what allows you to build the moment instead of being trapped inside it. When you speak without framing, the conversation drifts. When you speak with framing, the conversation aligns. To practice framing, slow down your openings. The first sentence of the moment is more important than the next 10. Start with clarity. Start with intention. Start with a tone that matches the direction you want the conversation to go. People are not waiting for your words. They're waiting for your emotional direction. A calm voice creates a calm frame. A slow pace creates a clear frame. A steady posture creates a confident frame. A grounded presence creates a safe frame. Before you continue a conversation, ask yourself, what emotional lens do I want this person to view this moment through? What energy will make this message easiest to receive? Am I reacting to their frame or creating my own? What meaning do I want this moment to carry? These questions shift you from emotional reactivity into psychological leadership. Because framing is leadership. Influence is not about forcing your perspective. Influence is about shaping the meaning of the moment. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the clearest frame. Frame the conversation, and you guide the perception. Frame the perception, and you guide the behavior. Frame the behavior, and you guide the outcome. Frame the story, shape the mind. Chapter 7. Power Positions. There is a kind of power that doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need volume or dominance or theatrics. It simply lives in the way a person holds their body, enters a room, claims their space, and moves through the world. People feel this type of power before they understand it. And once you understand how power positions shape perception, you begin to realize that presence often speaks louder than language ever could. Most people unintentionally weaken their presence. They shrink their posture, they rush their movements, they fidget without noticing, they speak too quickly as if racing their own insecurity. They collapse their shoulders, lift their voice, over-explain their point. And even though they might say the right words, people don't feel the strength behind them. This is the hidden pain of influence. People listen to your presence before they listen to your message. True power begins in the nervous system. A calm body communicates stability. A relaxed posture communicates confidence. A slow breath communicates control. When your body signals groundedness, the room adjusts around you. People regulate themselves through the energy of the most centered person present. That person becomes the anchor, the reference point, the implicit leader. Imagine speaking to a group and someone challenges you. Most people tense up. Their shoulders tighten, their breath shortens, their voice rises, betraying their emotional imbalance. But then imagine someone who stays still, not frozen, still. Their shoulders remain open, their breath remains slow, their response is measured, not rushed. That person immediately regains control of the moment because their body never surrendered it. Power positions are not about appearing dominant. They are about eliminating the physical signals of insecurity. When you stop shrinking, people stop overlooking you. When you stop rushing, people stop doubting you. When you stop fidgeting, people stop questioning your conviction. Influence begins when your body stops arguing with your intention. Picture someone sitting with confidence, their spine aligned, feet grounded, hands still, eyes steady. They don't need to gesture frantically. They don't need to lean forward as if chasing approval. Their presence communicates, "I belong in this space." That silent statement creates more authority than any persuasive argument ever could. And now, imagine the opposite. Someone leans forward anxiously, nodding excessively, filling every pause with nervous chatter. Their body says, "Please accept me." Their words lose weight. Their presence loses power. People don't follow the person who seeks validation. They follow the person who doesn't need it. Influence begins the moment you decide not to abandon your center. Slow your movements, relax your shoulders, lower your breath. Occupy your space with ease. Speak only after your body is still enough for the words to land. When pressure rises, your posture is the first signal people read. And if your posture stays grounded, others instinctively trust you, even if they don't fully agree with you. Stability is persuasive. Stability is magnetic. Stability is leadership. Before any interaction, ask yourself, am I entering this moment with grounded presence or with reactive tension? Am I trying to fill space, or am I allowing space to hold my message? Am I moving with intention, or is my anxiety moving for me? Power positions are not about dominance. They're about emotional self-possession. And when your body speaks with confidence, your words don't need to work as hard. Power is communicated before words. Chapter 8. The Law of Silence. Silence is the most underestimated tool in human communication. People fear it. They rush to fill it. They interpret it as weakness or awkwardness. But silence, in the hands of someone who understands influence, becomes a weapon sharper than confrontation and gentler than persuasion. Silence shifts power instantly. Silence reveals truth instantly. Silence restores control instantly. Most people talk too much because silence exposes them. It forces their nervous system to sit with uncertainty. It reveals their discomfort. It makes them feel vulnerable. So they fill the space with explanations, justifications, apologies, nervous laughter, anything to escape the feeling of being truly seen. But the influential individual embraces silence, because silence is where clarity appears. Silence is where truth leaks out. Silence is where emotional leadership becomes visible. Imagine someone questions your decision. The average person responds immediately, scrambling to defend themselves. But an influential person pauses. The room feels that pause. The rhythm shifts. The tension breaks. The silence communicates calm authority. It communicates, "I'm not threatened. I'm thinking. I'm choosing my response." That pause says more about your power than your eventual words. Or picture someone emotionally escalating, raising their voice, speeding their speech. Silence, held with steady breath and grounded posture, forces their nervous system to recalibrate. Their emotional spike cannot sustain itself without opposition. They begin to slow down, soften, reveal their actual fears instead of their performance of anger. Silence becomes de-escalation without confrontation. Silence also reveals intention. When you stop talking, people fill the space with what they were hiding. They reveal concerns, insecurities, contradictions. They expose emotional truths they didn't intend to share. Silence invites honesty the way pressure never could. To master silence, you must stop fearing the gap between words. That gap is influence. That gap is presence. That gap is where your message gains weight. When you finish an important sentence, pause. Let your words land. Let the emotional impact settle. Most people destroy the power of their own message by rushing into the next sentence. Imagine saying something meaningful and then allowing 3 seconds of stillness. The silence amplifies the sentence. It deepens the emotional resonance. It forces the listener to process instead of react. Silence is not empty. Silence is focus. Another use of silence: breaking manipulation. When someone expects you to chase, respond quickly, defend yourself, or explain your worth, silence interrupts the pattern. You're no longer controlled by their expectation. Silence returns control to you. Before speaking, ask yourself, am I filling space from insecurity or choosing silence from strength? Is my silence creating clarity or avoiding discomfort? What power is available in this moment if I simply stop talking? Silence is emotional precision. Silence is presence without performance. Silence is influence without force. Silence controls attention. Chapter 9. Influence. Through clarity. Clarity is the purest form of authority. People trust what they understand. They doubt what feels tangled, hesitant, or chaotic. And the truth is simple. You lose more influence from unclear communication than from being wrong. Confusion creates emotional distance. Clarity creates emotional alignment. Most people speak to relieve anxiety, not to deliver meaning. They talk in circles, pile on context, soften their truth, apologize before expressing anything real. They dilute their words until the message disappears, and when the message disappears, so does their authority. Influential people speak differently. They speak cleanly. They speak intentionally. They speak with emotional architecture, each sentence placed where it belongs, nothing extra, nothing missing. Clarity is not about saying more. Clarity is about removing what does not matter. Imagine someone giving instructions but adding so much detail that the listener feels overwhelmed. The brain shuts down when it encounters complexity without structure. Now imagine someone who expresses the same idea in one crisp sentence. The listener feels relief. They feel direction. They feel guided. Clarity reduces cognitive load. Reduced cognitive load increases trust. Picture a conversation where 2 people disagree. One person talks frantically, trying to justify themselves. The other person speaks slowly, directly. Here's what I want. Here's why it matters. Here's what we can do next. The second person owns the moment, not because their idea is better, but because their clarity creates psychological stability. Clarity is emotional leadership. Your clarity tells people you are not confused. Your clarity tells people you know where you stand. Your clarity tells people you are safe to follow. The fastest way to gain clarity is to decide on one message before you speak. If you try to say 5 things at once, you communicate nothing. If you choose one thing and express it well, people remember it. Speak in clean, complete thoughts. Use simple words with strong meaning. End your sentences instead of trailing off. Cut your explanations in half. Cut your speed by 1/3. Cut your worry about being perfect. When you slow down your language, your message sharpens. When you remove filler, your presence strengthens. When you strip your words to their essence, your authority rises. Before speaking, ask yourself, what is the one thing I want this person to truly understand? What emotional state do I want to create? What words help me express truth without noise? Clarity is not perfection. Clarity is intention. Clarity is the courage to be direct. Clarity creates trust. Chapter 10. Lead the human behavior game. The highest level of influence is not understanding human behavior. It is leading it. Most people navigate interactions like passengers, reacting to tone, reacting to pressure, reacting to emotion, reacting to the strongest energy in the room. They lose themselves inside other people's storms. They mirror anxiety. They absorb frustration. They follow the emotional current instead of choosing their own. Real influence begins when you stop mirroring the room and start shaping it. The person who remains grounded becomes the emotional leader. The person whose breath slows becomes the stabilizer. The person whose voice softens becomes the anchor. The person who chooses clarity becomes the guide. And once you guide the emotional direction of the moment, you lead the behavior that follows. Imagine someone raises their voice. Most people match that intensity unconsciously, but an influential person lowers their voice. They slow their tempo. They bring the energy down instead of up. The other person feels the shift and recalibrates. Influence is not force. Influence is emotional gravity. Or picture a meeting where everyone is scattered and anxious. People talk over each other, ideas collide, tension rises. The influential individual speaks just once. Let's pause. Here's what matters. The room reorganizes around their clarity. Leadership is not volume. Leadership is alignment. People follow those who regulate themselves. People trust those who regulate the moment. To lead the human behavior game, you must hold your internal state steady even when the external environment wobbles. Emotional reactivity hands power away. Emotional grounding takes it back. Leading behavior means choosing tone intentionally. It means your tone does not rise with the other person's emotion. It means your pace slows the moment someone else speeds up. It means your presence remains centered even when someone else loses center. You become the metronome everyone unconsciously syncs to. This is not manipulation. This is psychological stewardship. The room needs someone to hold the emotional frame. That someone can be you. Before entering any interaction, ask yourself, what tone do I want to set? What pace will make people feel safe? What direction do I want the moment to move toward? What energy must I embody so the other person can mirror it? Influence is less about the words you choose and more about the state you choose. People rarely remember the exact sentences spoken. They remember who steadied the moment. They remember who stayed clear. They remember who led the emotional direction. They remember who made them feel safe enough to follow. Lead the mind, lead the emotion, lead the energy, lead the moment. There is a moment after learning the psychology of human behavior when everything in your life begins to look different. The conversations you used to fear now feel understandable. The people you once misread now become clear. The emotional patterns that once confused you now reveal themselves in simple, predictable ways. You start to see the signals beneath the words, the intentions beneath the reactions, the truth beneath the performance. And once you see these things, you can never go back to the old way of interacting with the world. Human behavior stops feeling chaotic. It starts feeling readable. It starts feeling navigable. It starts feeling like something you can lead instead of something you must endure. This is the quiet transformation that happens when you develop deep psychological awareness. You begin to understand that emotions are not random, reactions are not accidental, tension is not meaningless, and people are not as mysterious as they once seemed. Every expression, every hesitation, every shift in posture, every tone change, every pause, carries a story you now know how to decode. You also begin to understand something even more powerful. The way you show up, your energy, your clarity, your presence, your calm is shaping every interaction you're part of. Influence is no longer something you try to do. Influence becomes something you are. You don't have to chase approval. You don't have to overpower the room. You don't have to force people to hear you. Your presence does the work. Your intentions do the work. Your emotional steadiness does the work. This kind of influence is quiet but undeniable. It is soft but penetrating. It is calm but powerful. It shows up in the way you pause before reacting, the way you observe instead of assume, the way you listen beneath the surface, the way you speak with clarity instead of noise, the way you use silence with intention, the way you guide rather than push. You become the emotional anchor people gravitate toward. You become the grounded presence people trust without needing to analyze why. And something else begins to happen. Your own life becomes easier. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become clearer. You stop taking things personally. You stop absorbing the emotions of others as if they were your own. You stop losing yourself in other people's chaos. You stop reacting to every emotional spike around you. Instead, you lead the emotional tone. You lead the direction. You lead the pace. You lead the moment. This is the real power behind mastering human behavior. It frees you. It frees you from confusion. It frees you from emotional turbulence. It frees you from the need to perform. It frees you from the pressure to constantly defend yourself. It frees you to choose how you want to show up, instead of being shaped by whatever is happening around you. You aren't just reading the room anymore. You are shaping the room. You aren't just decoding micro-expressions. You are responding with emotional intelligence and leadership. You aren't just navigating triggers. You are guiding people back into safety and clarity. You aren't just understanding dynamics. You are influencing them with intention, not force. And this ability, to influence through clarity, presence, tone, pacing, silence, and emotional leadership, is not just a communication skill. It is a life skill.